Greetings and welcome back to Son of the Cinema. Today again, one of my favorite movies. I'm going to be reviewing a little known classic from the 80s, directed by the German new wave genius Wim Wenders. It's called Paris, Texas, and it is an extraordinary movie, a road trip into the soul of the American psyche, into the soul of humanity, really. It is a parable, it's a meditation, it's just really a profound movie. So the film opens in this incredible desert vista with all those structures very similar to Monument Valley, and we get this beautiful aerial shot just drifting over these incredible mountain ranges, and suddenly in the midst of this desert we see this solitary soul walking through, and the camera cuts to a close-up and it's Harry Dean Stanton. Now Harry Dean Stanton was an extraordinary character actor, had done so many movies, gaunt, soulful looking, haggard individual that always kind of got cast as this, the supporting guy, probably best known for his role in Alien. A magnificent character actor, but never a lead actor, because Hollywood never cast him in a lead role because, his looks supposedly didn't fit the looks of a leading man, whatever a leading man is supposed to look like. And Wim Wenders casts him in a stroke of genius as the lead protagonist, Travis Henderson, who's this kind of lost soul, who's lost in this landscape of his own making. And how fitting that the film opens in a desert, because Travis is in the wilderness. He's in the wilderness of his own suffering, in the wilderness of his own longing, of the wilderness of his own making, in the wilderness of separation. And he lands up, and of course this is accompanied by Ry Cooder's magnificent score, and it's so sparse yet so mesmerizing, and this kind of in a way encapsulates the film. The film is sparse yet mesmerizing. Harry Dean Stanton's performance is sparse but mesmerizing. Wim Wenders' direction, sparse yet mesmerizing. And so he makes his way through this desert to Ry Cooder's iconic score, and finds himself in a deserted farmhouse where he passes out. Is discovered by a German doctor, and the only bit of information on him is a phone number. And so the doctor phones the phone number and discovers that this man has a brother, Walt, played by Dean Stockwell. And he says, well, I found this man, and describes him, and Walt realizes it's his long lost brother who disappeared 4 years ago, leaving his wife and child, and his wife also disappeared. No one knows where Travis has gone, and so his brother makes a road trip, finds Travis, but Travis does not want to be found, and so begrudgingly is kind of taken back to civilization, although without trouble. They kind of hole up in a little hotel before making their way, because he's driven there, and then Travis disappears, and Walt has to now find him, and there he is walking on train tracks, God knows where, again, walking into nowhere, on the road to nowhere. And Walt has to kind of persuade him back into the car, cajole him back into the car. And they make their way to the airport, want to fly, and he won't take a plane, so they have to go on the road trip. And this film really is one gigantic road trip. And of course, Wenders is no stranger to road trips. His magnificent Kings of the Road, made in 1976, really worth watching. Black and white film, brilliant. So this is again another road trip, and it's a road trip with a purpose. It is, Travis makes the journey from separation to reconciliation, to repentance, to renewal, and it is a journey that the audience also take. There's so much in this film that just talks about the human condition that we cannot but recognize ourselves in this film. So Travis finds his way back to Walt's house, and there becomes the reconciliation, the first bit of reconciliation. It's kind of in thirds. The first is with his brother. The second one is with his estranged son, who he hasn't seen in 4 years, who's a stranger to him, and he to his father. And the last one is, and the most poignant, is with his wife, Jane. And so Travis begins his journey back to re-find himself and re-find everything that he's lost. This film really is like the parable of the prodigal son. It really is a picture of the prodigal son. Travis finding his way back. And there's some beautiful tells in this movie. There's so much in this film that is so subtle, and yet you see these tiny little tells when they all get together and they're watching a home movie of the way it was, and shots of Travis and his son and his wife Jane, and you just see this one shot. It cuts back to Harry Dean Stanton, and he just closes his eyes, and there's just so much pain, so much longing, so much that is communicated with no words. And this is really a poignant part of the movie, because Travis hardly speaks. He remains largely silent throughout the film, which is, of course, extraordinary for a leading man. And yet his face tells everything. And this is the magnificence of Wenders' movie, is that it's not only the visual landscape. The most extraordinary landscape in this film is the human face. And Harry Dean Stanton has just got the most extraordinary craggy features. And this landscape of his face, what it reveals throughout this film, is so poignant. It's like 40 miles of bad road, of 40 years of bad living, just slowly being revealed, seeping through the cracks. And so they have the sort of, he's reconciled to his brother, and then slowly tries to reach out to his son. And there's a beautiful scene where he wants to pick up his son from the school, and the son doesn't want to be picked up. And eventually the son comes out of school one day and sees his father on the other side of the road, dressed in this weird suit. And the son kind of like starts walking home on the one side of the road, and Travis on the other side. And Travis starts to do these weird little walks, and the son mimics him. And it's such a beautiful scene of like two souls slowly gravitating towards each other, slowly finding each other. And there's another beautiful scene. I mentioned the home movie, with these little moments of glimpses of the life that he had. And another scene where Travis, Walt's wife, wakes up and finds all the shoes in the house missing, and Travis has taken them outside and cleaned all of them meticulously. And just that scene tells you so much about the character without words. And Travis eventually decides, after some time with Walt, is that he wants to go and find Jane. And his son wants to go with him, and he's initially hesitant, but he just decides on the spur of the moment to go. And they up and go without telling Walt. And they go on this road trip, and they find Jane she's become tragically kind of like a stripper and in a peep show. And Travis goes and visits her, and then sees it's her, and cannot say anything and leaves. But then he goes back, and in the climax of the film, all the powers of filmmaking coalesce into this brilliant scene. It's 20 minutes long, and it is absolutely magnificent. One of the greatest scenes in cinema, where Travis goes in there, and they're obviously separated by a screen. She can't see him, he can see her, and he sits with his back to her because he can't face to look at her. And he says, I want to tell you a story about a man and a woman who were in love. And he starts to tell their story, and she of course has no idea what he's talking about. She just whatever goes along with it. And it's incredible. Wenders' camera stays 3 minutes during this 20 minutes. There's a solid 3 minutes that he stays on Natasha Kinski, who plays Jane. This is unheard of. In Hollywood, you'd cut after 10 seconds. He stays on her face in a close-up for a full 3 minutes, and it's incredible. He allows the performance to breathe. He allows the flesh of the character to be in full view, as the actress and the character transition first from playful performer to confused young woman, and then finally to shattered soul when she realizes it's their life he's talking about. it's Travis that's talking, and when she comes to that absolutely shattering discovery, and he stays on her this full 3 minutes as she transitions almost imperceptibly. Incredible performance by Natasha Kinski. She should have won Best Supporting Actress because you hardly see her until the end. What a performance. What a soulful performance. You know, these actors are just exposing themselves. So rare in a film. And Travis, who sits with his back to her, and eventually when she realizes it's him, she goes right up to the glass and she says, "Travis." And he realizes she knows. And he says, "Can you see me if you switch the light off?" And she switches the light off on her side of the glass, and she can see him. It's so poignant. It's so emotional. And then in a beautiful reversal, because he has exposed himself, because he has, in all nakedness, has revealed himself, his sins, his shortcomings, he has confessed, his confession. This is his peep show is his confessional moment where he reveals himself and finally comes face to face with himself. And in doing that allows her to tell her side of the story. And she sits with her back to him and tells her side of the story, what she felt. There's no words to describe this scene. It's so un-Hollywood. It is such an incredible slice of humanity, a slice of soul, a slice of spirit. And of course the final scene where Travis makes the ultimate sacrifice so that she can be reconciled to her son. If you're left with a dry eye, then you have no soul, because it is just a beautiful, incredible scene. It is honestly, Paris, Texas says so much about humanity, so much about us, our brokenness, our frailty, how love is destroyed by the pressures of life, by the pressures of our own insecurities, our own frailties, how love can, such a gentle thing can unravel so quickly. And yet there is reconciliation. Beautiful, beautiful retelling almost of the story of the prodigal son. It's a metaphor for spiritual reconciliation, not only human reconciliation. It's a profound movie, brilliantly directed by Wim Wenders, incredible cinematography by Robbie Muller. Wenders used so many times. He won a Bavarian Film Award for Best Cinematography. This film won 3 awards at Cannes Film Festival. It won the Palme d'Or, the Fabreski, and the Ecumenical Award. Wim Wenders won the BAFTA Best Director. Should have won an Oscar for Best Director. This probably should have won Best Film. Wasn't even nominated for an Oscar. No surprises there with the farcical state of the Oscars. But the fact that it was so lauded at Cannes tells you everything you need to know about this movie. Paris, Texas, a haunting, melancholic journey into the heart of man, unmissable.